Today we're going to practice our volume skills. We know that volume is the amount of space an object takes up, and we can find it by measuring the length times the width times the height. So I'm going to take just 3 seconds, that's all it takes, to actually write down the formula every time I solve the problem. Volume equals length times width times height. So as you're going over your practice tests, you need to make sure that you have done this. If you haven't done it, then you need to redo it so that you are practicing it the correct way. If you write down the formula, it's nearly impossible to get these problems wrong because you're going to plug in the numbers and then multiply. So if you know how to plug in numbers and your multiplication, mess this up if you write down your formula. So I have my formula written down. I don't know the volume. I do know the length is 4 inches, the width is 2 inches, and the height is 6 inches. So I fill in my numbers, and now I multiply. 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 6 is 48. I have inches times inches times inches, so it's inches cubed. Another way of thinking of that is that this tells you it's a 3-dimensional figure. So you must have 48 inches cubed. If you don't have the 3 there, indicating that it's a 3D figure, then the problem is not right. Okay, number 2, we're going to have to sort of work backwards on this one. But we start the same way we did on the first one by writing our formula. Length times width times height. And I'm going to plug in what I do know. This time, I do know the volume is 100 feet cubed. I don't know the length. I know the width is 6 feet, and the height is 5 feet. I can go ahead and multiply. 6 times 5 is 30. So that means 30 times something is going to give me 120 feet cubed. If you know your multiplication facts, then you can figure that out. You can just figure out what it is. You can even use powers of 10 by thinking 3 times what gives you 12. If you don't know it, then you can always divide to the inverse operation or the opposite operation and divide. So you can say 120 divided by 30. So 3 times what gives you 12? 4. So 4 times 3 is 12, and 4 times 0 is 0. So the missing length is 4 feet. So the height, that's the length. So the length equals 4 feet. Number 3. Again, start every problem by writing down your formula. Volume equals length times width times height. I'm going to plug in all of the pieces of this that I know. Don't know the volume. I do know the length is 14 centimeters. I know the width is 3 centimeters, and I know the height is 1 centimeter. So I'm going to multiply 14 by 3. You can set that up on the side if you need to. And that answer is 42. And then I'll multiply that by 1, and I get 42 centimeters cubed. Again, because you're finding the volume, your answer should be recorded as centimeters cubed, or you might hear it referred to as cubic centimeters. On number 4, you're working backwards again. Still, write down your formula, length times width times height. Plug in what you do know. I do know the volume is 42 meters cubed. This should say cubed. I know the length is 3 meters. I know the width is 3 meters, and I don't know the height. 3 by 3 is 9, and so that means 9 times something is going to give me 72 meters cubed. If you know your multiplication facts, and on this one you should. So 9 times what is 72? 9 times 8. So the answer for the height is 8 meters. And notice I'm not putting meters cubed. That's because I'm not finding the volume. I'm finding just a measurement of one of the dimensions, so it's just recorded in 8 meters. Just 8 plane meters. Number 5. The base of a rectangular prism is 4 feet by 6 feet. The height is 13 feet. So you can draw a picture if that helps you think about the problem. I have 4 feet. The width is 6 feet. And then the height is 13 feet. That, of course, is not drawn to scale. It's just a quick sketch. So I'm doing this exact same process. Write down my formula. Volume is length by width by height. I don't know my volume. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I do know that the length is 4 feet. The width is 6 feet. And the height is 13 feet. 4 times 6 is 24. And then I need to multiply that by 13 to find my volume. So I'm going to set this up using the standard algorithm. You can also use area model. You can use lattice, whatever way you feel comfortable multiplying. 4 times 3 is 12. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. 1 times 4 is 4, and 1 times 2 is 2. So you should have gotten 312, and that is feet cubed, or 312 cubic feet. All right, flip your paper over to the back. Question number 6. David wants to build a toy box for his kids. He knows that he needs 48 cubic feet. So I'm going to rewrite this in a way that you're used to seeing, 48 feet cubed. So that tells me that he's describing the volume. So he wants this box to hold all of his tools. So what are 3 possible dimensions? So we're going to start out also filling in the formula. Volume equals length by width by height. I already know the volume. So the question is asking me, what are 3 different numbers I can multiply by to get 48? There's so many possibilities with this. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. But know that if you put down 3 numbers and you can check and multiply those 3 numbers and you get 48, then that is those are possible dimensions. So I'm going to try 6 by 8 by 1. I should record my unit measurement. 6 feet by 8 feet by 1 foot. And that equals 48. Would somebody like to share their dimensions?
6 by 4 by 2.
Okay, so I'm just going to record over here some other possibilities that people come up with. And you said 6 feet by 4 feet by 2 feet. So I know 6 times 4 is 24, and 24 times 2 is 48.
I did 2 by 3 by 8.
So 2 times 3 is 6, and then times 8 is 48.
12 times 4 times 1.
So 12 times 4 is 48, and then 1 foot height is still 48. Okay, like I said, there are so many other possibilities. So just check your work and see that it equals 48. Number 7, you're to find the volume of this picture. You could actually count every single block if you wanted to, and you can do that to check your work. But I would make sure I also write the formula down, length times width times height, and plug in what I know. I know that this is 3 units. It doesn't tell me if it's in inches, feet, yards, meters. I don't know, so I'm just going to write the word units to hold that place. And then it is also 2 units high. So I don't know the volume yet, but I do know that it's 3 units long, 2 units wide, and 2 units high. So 3 times 2 is 6. Multiply that by 2, and you have a volume of 12 units cubed, or 12 cubic units. Ooh, number 8, the challenge problem of the whole quiz. At first, you think it's a challenge problem, but as you take it step by step, you see you're following the exact same steps we have through all the other problems. So Connor and Lily built towers out of craft sticks. The base of Connor's tower had an area of 6 inches. So I'm going to stop right here and think through what this is saying. It's saying the base unit has an area. I know the area is the length times the width. So I multiplied something by something to get 6. Those possibilities might be 3 times 2 or 6 times 1. So that's how Connor got his base. And then Lily's tower has an area of 8 inches squared. So Lily's base, also she had to multiply the length by the width. And the possibilities for that would be 2 times 4 or 8 times 1. So that just helps you think through what their tower could possibly look like. Connor's tower has a volume of 42 cubic inches, and Lily's volume is 32 cubic inches. Draw a picture for Connor and Lily's towers with measurements to determine whose tower is the tallest. So I'm just going to ignore Lily, forget she exists. I'm just going to look at Connor right now and his measurements, and then we can look at Lily. So Connor's tower has an area of 6 inches squared. So I'm going to set my problem up. First of all, write down my formula. Noticing that for every single problem I have done so far, the very first thing I do is write down the formula. So I'm going to start with what I do know. I know that Connor's tower has a volume of 42 inches cubed. I know that when I multiplied the length by the width, I got an area of 6 inches. So I'm just going to plug in, I don't know if this is for sure or not, but I'm just going to plug in that his length was 3 inches and his width was 2 inches. And I don't know the height. But I do know that the base was 6 inches. So something times 6 inches gave us 42 inches cubed. Knowing your multiplication facts, you know right off the bat that the height would have had to have been 7 inches. So I'm going to write height equals 7 inches. So it says, draw a picture of this. I'm going to start off by drawing a rectangle. Then I'm just going to kind of draw diagonal lines off to the side. Draw no straight line. There we go. Rectangular prism. Now I need to label my work. Say this might be 3 inches. The width might be 2 inches. And the height is definitely 7 inches. Voila! Connor's tower. Now we can think about Lily. First thing I'm going to do, just like always, write down my formula, length times width times height. And I'm going to plug in what I do know about Lily's tower. I know that her volume is 32 inches cubed. I know the possibilities of her length and width could either be a 2 by 4 figure or 8 by 1. I'm just going to go with 2 by 4. And I don't know the height. Well, I know that when she multiplies the length by the width, she gets 8 cubic inches. I'm sorry, 8 inches squared. And then she's got to multiply 8 inches squared by something to get 32 cubic inches. So I know you're a master multiplier. So 8 times what equals 32? times 4. So I know that the height is 4 inches. So I need to draw a tower for Lily. Now, I can't draw the same size tower because Connor's is 7 inches tall and Lily's is 4 inches tall. So Lily's is going to be about half the size of Connor's in height. So I'm going to start drawing Lily's like this. But Lily's is 2 inches in length and 4 inches in width. So hers is going to be a little wider than Connor's. So now I need to label it. 2 inches, 4 inches wide, and 4 inches tall. Now the question's asking for us to determine whose is taller. So we're going to use our 4-square method for answering constructed responses. First, identify the question. Secondly, we need to describe what we do know about the information. We need to represent our thinking. We've already represented our thinking with the pictures. And then we need to actually describe what the answer is using evidence. So I'm going to start out by saying the question is asking me to determine whose tower is taller. And if you did not do this the first time, then you need to redo your work to make sure that you're producing 5th grade level work of a constructed response. I'm going to tell what I do know about the problem. I know the height of Connor's tower is 7 inches, while the height of Lily's tower is 4 inches. So now I'm going to actually answer the question. Connor's tower is the tallest because it is 3 inches taller than Lily's tower. Number 9, Jace found the volume of the prism picture to the right. He multiplied 12 times 4. And that gives you 48. And then he said he has 48 3 times. So instead of doing it, I'm just going to write the formula to the side. So instead of doing it in order of length and width first and then multiplying the height, he kind of worked backwards and said the height times the width and then the length. But that's okay because we know, based on the commutative property of multiplication, that the order you multiply in won't change your answer. For example, if you say 2 times 3, you get 6. And if you say 3 times 2, you still get 6. So because of the commutative property of multiplication, Jace can multiply the height and the width first and then the length. He could do the width and length and then height. So you can multiply in any order of these numbers. I just typically start with length times width first and then do the height. And then Shelby says, no, Jace, you did it wrong. You should have done the bottom first. You should have said 3 times 4 is 12 and then multiply the height. 12 times 12 is 144. They both got the right answer. So it's our job to explain to Shelby why it's okay for Jace to do that. So we need to explain to Shelby about the multiplication, the commutative property of multiplication. So we're going to say, Shelby, Jace can multiply the width times height first and then the length, because he is aware of the commutative property of multiplication. This property states the order factors are multiplied will not change the product. Remember, the product is the answer in a multiplication. Your friend Millie. Millie's so happy it's springtime. She's getting to exercise more. And she's so happy to help Shelby. Oh, yeah. She's so happy to help Shelby and Jace with their multiplication homework, too. Okay, we are almost finished. We're on the last page. And these aren't as in-depth as the others. Question number 10. Use Jace's method to find the volume of the rectangular prism. So we're going to set up the problem just like we always have. Length times width times height. We're going to plug in what we know. 4 inches by 7 inches by 5 inches. And Jace did 7 times 5 first, which would be 35. And then he said that he had it 4 times. So you could say 35 times 4. Or you could add 35 plus 35 plus 35. And you will still get 140. So the volume of this rectangular prism is 140 inches cubed. Okay, the next one, we're trying to find what the volume is of the box. It's missing some of the pieces, but that's not going to stop us. We can count all of the cubes and then imagine how many would be there that are missing. Or you can still use the formula. Volume equals length times width times height. And this doesn't say if it's in feet, inches, meters, yards. So I'm just going to use the word units. 3 units by 3 units, and it is 2 units tall. So I'm going to plug in my information. 3 units length, 3 units width, 2 units height. So you see, if you write down the formula, it's almost impossible to get these wrong. 3 times 3 is 9, and then 9 by 2 is 18 units cubed. Okay, the last one. This is an irregular solid, so we can't use our formula for this one. We just need to count the cubes to see how much space they take up. And I can tell that this goes 3 cubes back. See? So there's 3 going back, plus this one is 4, 5, 6, and there's 1 underneath that, which makes 7. This makes 8, and this one on the end makes 9. So this would be 9 units cubed. Again, I don't know if it's centimeters, inches, meters, yards, so I'll just use the word units. And the last question, Laura needs to make an ecosystem inside a rectangular prism. She has to make sure that the volume of the ecosystem is 42 cubic inches. So she's wanting the volume to be 42 inches cubed. So think of all the possible dimensions you could use to equal 42. This is a lot like the one we did on problem number 6. And this is like the activity we did in class where I gave you 24 cubes and I said find all the ways you could put this together to make a rectangular prism. So it's just like that hands-on activity we did. So let's hear from the audience.
7 times 6 times 1.
Okay, that one is right. That gives us 42.
21 times 2 times 1.
That gives us 42 also. Y'all are getting very creative with this.
14 times 1 times 3.
Good. And one more.
7 times 3 times 3.
And I bet there are a dozen more different possibilities that you could have written down. You can just check yourself or have a friend check you to make sure that when you multiply those 3 numbers together, you get 42. All right. I really believe that if you write down the formula every single time on every single question, it will help you make sure that you're organizing your thoughts properly. And I think you'll be really successful in this test.